Welcome to the podcast. My name's Alexander Dilger. This is Reese Carlton, Norman Charles, Jack Gatlin. Today we'll be exploring how what we know shapes what we care about. Let's get started with a story about a time that changed your mind about something important.
I guess I'll go ahead and start off. I think something that happened to me that really changed the way I look at life was during COVID. I had a lot of time to just sit to myself, trying to think of how do I become a better person? And so I think while I was sitting there trying to figure out how to become a better person, I realized that I need to focus more on myself and not about what other people were thinking of. Because that was middle school for us. We had a lot of other things going on. And so taking that time to reflect and making sure that I had time for myself, I think it sounds selfish, but I think it's important because you can't help other people out until you help yourself. So I just think that's been a core value for me recently. It's just that you gotta be able to help yourself, focus on yourself, love yourself.
Okay, so you're saying you need to be able to focus on yourself and love yourself to be able to help others?
Yes.
Well, similarly, during COVID, for me, I sort of had this existential crisis. I just kind of realized that you couldn't really define what is good and bad, and so many people had different views on it. And so I started searching for an answer, and so I sort of went through. So I'm naturally a people pleaser, and so that kept continuing to live for other people. Kind of just put me in this, depressed state, and I was looking for a way out. And so I started following this Red Pill community online, which is just a community of people that have you focus on yourself, and it's kind of just a bunch of people lifting each other up, but also in doing that they put a lot of other people down. And I started realizing that, and so it just seemed like there was no balance between living for others and living for yourself. It is which one do you choose? And then they sort of Red Pill started dipping into philosophy and questioning what the origins of this world. And so I started naturally to question the origins of this world. And then I came to my faith. I'm now a man of faith, and I try to follow the teachings of Jesus Christ, and so that's where I'm at now with where all my beliefs stem from.
Story about a time that changed my mind about something important was when I worked in a coal mine. I found out just how much grit and that unseen work you have to put in to take care of the people you care about. I learned this from watching my brother-in-law. I worked in the coal mines with him, and the amount of work he puts in for his family that they don't see is crazy. We're talking 80 hours a week that they don't see outside of work just to make sure his family stays afloat. And that really impacted me, and that made me want to just up my grit basically and just do what I can, no matter if it's seen or unseen, to help those around me.
I just met you. I didn't know you worked in the coal mines. But, you're basically saying, you've seen... Are you from Eastern Kentucky?
Yes.
I assume. Okay. So you're seeing what your family, how hard they're pushing you. Is that almost giving you, extra motivation here at UK to get an education, do something? Are you going to, go back, help your family out?
Most definitely. That's the whole plan. My life motto is kinder every day, and my whole goal in life is to just be successful and help as many as I possibly can along the way.
Gotcha.
Going off of that, what sends you guys, what keeps you guys going? What's your main value for why you get up in the morning?
It's every day. It's different. It's a lot of undulation back and forth, peaks and lows. And I've sort of been noticing that my life is more in the Bible, in the Old Testament, we have the Israelites, and they're constantly rejoicing and praising God for pulling them out of something. But as soon as something goes wrong, they're complaining to God and they're building false idols. And I'm sort of recognizing that every day I recognize more and more that I'm like that. And so it's sort of pulling me out of that that back and forth, that high and low. But I think that I'll always have that that high and low. But knowing that there is an end, that there's a light at the end of the tunnel, that there's an afterlife, that we can look higher than ourselves to decide what we need to do, that there is a purpose for us. That sort of keeps me going, even though I'm still trying to work out what it is.
I'd say mine's ranges. Honestly, probably a major factor that drives me is my dad, or just my family in general. My family, they've done a lot of good things, and it's tough sometimes thinking about how I can get to that level. At the end of the day, I always want to impress my dad, and I know that's not always a great mindset, but that's a big factor on what gets me up every day, is because I want my dad to be proud of me, and I want to be able to be as successful as him, hopefully even more successful. But that's a long road ahead of me. It's going to be tough, and I know getting up, doing the right things is going to help me get on that path to being as successful.
Mine's along the same lines as Reese's. Simply put, it's just my faith in God. My life has meaning. I know God has means for me to do something. And I'd be lying if I didn't say I struggle with motivation most days. But just thinking about that makes me excited, and I want to see what God has planned for me.
Trying to become as successful as your dad, do you feel like that's a competition with yourself or a competition with those around you? Because back in his time, it was more simple to become successful. But now it seems like as more is emerging, it is harder to become successful in like our
100%.
generation.
100%. It's definitely, we're in definitely a more competitive era. I think more people are going to college, more people are having higher paying jobs. I mean, it's just harder to get into things than it was.
Not to mention the gap between the wealthy.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Wealth gap is massive right now. It's definitely the economy's gone to crap. It's just
Especially the rent gap from investors looking at poorer, more rural areas. What all the rent gap is basically what they think the land is valued at versus the affordability and how much the residents pay.
So that's
housing isn't affordable. It's not a great situation, but I think that's also given me extra motivation to push me to try and overcome all of these factors and still reach that level. As I also did, we came from similar backgrounds, me and my dad, but at the same time, having these external factors we have today that he didn't have to deal with, I think adds just that extra motivation.
So what do you see success as, like in comparison with him?
I think there's two ways to look at success. I think one way is just straightforward. How happy are you in life? I think that's a massive part of success. But I also think you can also measure success in how much wealth you're building, right?
Okay.
Not just like straight money or income you're making in,
Things.
but tangible things. But I think happiness is first.
Yeah.
I think you can't be successful, have a bunch of money. If you're not happy, I don't think that's successful.
How would you describe happiness?
How would I describe happiness? I think it's a strong will to live, waking up in the morning, not being like depressed, not wanting to just like, wanting to do things. I think when you're happy, you want to do things, you want to socialize, you want to be around people you love. I think when you're not happy, those things are missing from your life. You're not doing things, you're just sitting around doing nothing, doom scrolling.
Yeah, so you don't view happiness as like the amount of things you have.
No,
It's
I think
more based on like
I think
the social interactions you get.
100%.
I think the best way to think about happiness is, are you fulfilled?
Yeah, I 100% agree.
Yeah, and I feel like everyone has a different fulfillment that they're trying to get out of life. And like me personally, I've always ever since I was little, I've always had a dream of like having a farm and a big family, and that's what guides me. Like right now, I may not know the exact path to get there, but I at least have an end goal in mind. And I feel like, me personally, like being in college, I feel like I've been getting on myself more, because I feel like every decision I make is like puts more weight on what my future will look like. Because I feel like back at high school and middle school, yeah, you had to like worry about like what your future was gonna be, but you couldn't really do much about it because you couldn't really make those big decisions. Like nowadays, we have to worry about like, I don't know, like getting a job and like.
You're talking the real
Yeah,
stuff.
like we're in the real world
Life is
now.
real now.
Exactly.
It
So,
used
like,
to be we had other things
like
fall
all
back
our
on,
decisions.
but now it's real.
I go through 3 background checks, fill
Yeah,
out like
exactly.
10 forms for my job.
Like we have so many like more responsibilities and so much more weight put on us. I feel like in this time we get very I wouldn't say like unmotivated to like
Lenient.
move on.
We get lenient on ourselves.
Yeah. And I just feel like at times I feel very lost. But I just gotta remember my end goal, and talking to people helps me like realize that I'm not alone in that.
But would you say all of us are in college? We're almost more fortunate as we almost have more time.
Mm-hmm.
Like we're kind of in a safety ground here in the university. As if you're going straight into the workforce, I mean, real life hits you like that.
Yeah.
I mean, we're here in our dorm. You know, we've
Yeah, we-
either been on scholarships or
Yeah.
other things, but we have 4 years here
Yeah.
to grow ourselves and get ready to go into the world. And I think we
Yeah.
need to make sure we utilize that 4 years.
Yeah, and I
best
feel
we
like
can.
we view college, it's like, oh, we're struggling and this is what, like why do we even need to come to college? Because you're like, you know, like Calc 2 or math, you're like, what's the point of taking this class?
I personally think the biggest reason you should go to college is not just the knowledge you gain, but the experiences and effects from those experiences on your
Yeah,
life.
college is much more.
And how it forges you as a person.
College is much more than just getting a degree. Like, you can get so many different relationships out of college. You can meet all these people. You gain independence. You learn how to do things for yourself, and it really just builds up values more than just the technical side.
Yeah, I had a pretty nihilistic view on college before I came.
Mhm.
I thought that it was
Me
like
too.
I kind of in my head I sort of just had it as, oh, education is kind of falling apart
Mhm.
in the country, and it just costs so much, and it's gonna set me back, and just because it's something, just because I want to do engineering, and but now after I've been talking to some of my professors and sharing ideas with them, and I've sort of questioned, not that I necessarily was certain on what I believed, but I've started to get more curious about what I believe and becoming more unsure about what I believe, which is, I don't think is a bad thing.
So you ask more questions.
Yeah,
Being here.
it's an environment where I can do that.
Yeah.
And I like it.
Do you ever feel like asking those questions will get a bad response from people? Like, do you feel like when you ask those questions that people will view you a different way because you decided to ask that question?
Not necessarily like the people here, because I don't have any ties to them, but my family back home and my friends back home, and like people who I used to have a relationship have a view of me, and they think they know what I believe because of how I act, but I don't really, like, I never really had it set in stone that I knew what I believed, and I'm just trying to figure it out just like them. But and I think that especially my parents asking these questions to I come from a background where my parents went to a Baptist church. I'm talking to people from the Good Samaritan Society and Catholic groups, and nobody in my family was ever really getting deep into theology, and so I feel like I can maybe not necessarily here I'm gonna get a bad response, but when I come back home, I might.
So you feel like you have a
Some
blank slate here?
Yeah.
Okay.
I love what you said there about how coming here helps you question things. I personally think our nation is becoming almost more ignorant and not asking questions.
Yeah.
I think it's important to question things. I just think that leads to better ideas.
Do you
if
think it's fear or a want for bliss?
I think it's I think it's a mixture of both. I think people are scared of what the reality of the situation could be, but I also think people are just locked into their own little worlds in their phones, and they don't want to think about the bigger picture. They're just like, okay, I can get from this paycheck to this paycheck to this paycheck, not thinking about the bigger picture.
Do you think that it's because we look at other nations and we're like, oh, we're so educated, and we almost look at ourselves as better because we are a superpower, and we're like,
think
oh, we're the best, you know?
Adding on to what Jack said, I have a mother who's been in the school system for 20 plus years, so I get the inside details of how because she works in the high school, how the freshmen and the seniors and everybody's acting. And what she's told me is as the years are going on, the younger generations are just wanting to less and less learn and put in the work to be successful.
I've got a silly little story about that. My sister, she just became a elementary school teacher, and she's got this girl from I think it's Czech or Russia, one of the two. But this entire year, up until like 2 weeks ago,
Is it the Czech Republic and Russia?
I don't know, but she's been speaking. I don't know what language they speak, but she's been speaking a different language the entire time and pretending like she doesn't understand my sister. But then my sister called her a few days ago, and this is third grade, and found out that she understands English and that she can speak it because one of the kids heard her speaking it. But she's just been trying to avoid learning, and she just wants to do her own thing. So it even starts like that early.
At my home high school where my mother works, she's been getting more and more work each year from students just turning in blank papers because she teaches English and stuff like that.
People don't care right now.
Yeah. Do you think?
And I believe social media is to blame on this because
Okay.
I feel like this sort of bad, in quotations, gangster life is promoted and seen in a spotlight on social media, and the younger generations are starting to think that's more cool to not want to do or be successful and like try to work for your future.
Nonchalant epidemic.
And I know, like, how you were talking about how your mom works in the education field. So my dad, he runs a small business in Northern Kentucky, and he was saying that a lot of people coming out of college, they're just doing the bare minimum. They don't care. Like, they'll do their hours. They're like, he's like, if I say they'll get double time if they work an extra 3-4 hours, he's like, they're not going to do it. They're only going to work exactly what they need to do.
We have an epidemic of grit. People don't have enough grit or want to anymore.
Do you think this is stemmed from the education system?
I think so. I think everyone gets passed. Have you
I think
met anyone who's failed?
I think it stems from both the home and the education system.
Okay, how so?
I think it stems from the home because their parents don't care enough about it. So
Yes.
and
Do you
then
think?
monkey see,
Yes.
monkey do. That's how
I
kids
love
work.
my sister to death, but she's treating my 10-year-old nephew like he is 16 years old and letting him go and do whatever he wants and go to his friends' houses all the time. I've never once seen her check his homework to make sure he's doing his work, but only get mad at him when he brings home a bad grade.
Well, coming from like
I think you were going to say something about the education system.
I mean, like I was just saying, every single person passes. All teachers care about is if you pass.
Yeah, it's all about the grade.
I've met people who have not done the work, and teachers have changed the grades so that they pass, so they don't have to deal with them. I mean, that's messed up.
Do you
But
think-
teachers only care about the bottom line of not having students fail.
Do you think we should go back to a time where there's no grading system and it's solely based on like learning? Like, there was this one study where this photography professor was like, the whole semester there was a group A and group B, and group A had to like take as many photos as possible, but group B had to get one perfect photo. And at the end of the semester, they would judge who had the best photo. And the people that had to take as many photos as possible ended up with the best photo because they had they failed and they learned all these different skills
Yeah.
to
And that
do
comes
well.
from the basis of understanding through failure.
Yeah,
So-
I think we correlate
And-
fear with learning too.
Yes.
Because of
Yeah.
the education system.
And the thing with the education system is if you fail once, it's over. You have to start completely over again.
Mhm.
You can't learn from it. I feel like education should be based on understanding, and understanding if you fail, that's okay. You can try again.
Mm-hmm.
I think the only issue with that, though, with you saying like take away grades, students got to have the desire to learn. I feel like there's a large
Yes.
desire that people just don't care. Like all of us
But-
seem like we want to learn.
Mhm.
We're here because we want to be here. But
Coming to that,
if
like-
you take away the grading system, what's going to be pushing the kids to?
Their purpose.
Yes.
It's
and
like
Kids don't care.
Exploring what they like.
That's what we're talking about. People don't care though.
That's
And-
true.
So how do you motivate them?
going
How do you
back
bring
to
it back?
Reese
Yeah.
and correlating what Reese said to what you said, Jack, it's the parents. They're not pushing their children. My parents are 56 and 59, so I would say I had more of an older upbringing. And the contrast between how my sister and parents of my nephew's friends and how my parents looked at parenting is completely different. My parents, yes, they was hard on me, but all for good reason. Because they was pushing me because they wanted me to be the best. And I feel like that helped from a young age instill in me that drive.
I feel like
100%.
the home life stems from like the parents feeling they have no time for their kids because they're so worried about each paycheck because everything gets more expensive.
Mm-hmm.
So they're so locked in on their work that they can't
Yes.
focus in on their
Look,
kids.
From what I've seen, it also stems from social views and social media
Mhm.
and anything you do being able to put in the spotlight. They're scared to discipline and drive their children because they're afraid
Of being
that
judged.
their peers will look at them in a bad spotlight.
For me, I have started to like thinking about how I would reform the education system. I think that it will need to it's going to call upon the teachers heavily, and they need to have a more intimate relationship with the students, and that's in our education system. That's not appropriate. Like even if you talk to the students outside of class, like you're not supposed to do that. I'm not talking about universities, of course, but like when children are younger. And then also, if I was to tie that back into the Bible, we are called to be disciples and disciple others. And I think that the only way to really learn and share ideas is mirrored in that. And you need smaller groups,
Mm-hmm. Discussion.
more intimate, discussion based.
Yes,
And it needs to, and then, I mean, yeah. That's
Yeah,
I think we-
Speaking of that, I feel like you said, small group discussion is one of the best ways to learn. That in class sizes like here at the university, for my chem class, for example, where I have 270 people in a single lecture hall, and it's just a teacher talking to all these people, I feel like there's no connection between the
Yeah.
teacher and the class.
Yeah.
I feel like there's this invisible wall. And I feel like that very much so harms understanding. And I feel as schools are more underfunded, but as population rises and more kids come in, that's the same issue with classes.
Yeah.
High schools, middle schools, elementaries.
I think a great sample size to show that what y'all are saying is true is the high school I went to, which was Ignite, and you went to for 2 years.
Mhm.
I mean, we had basically the same teachers for 4 years,
Yeah.
with the same kids for 4 years, and the kids there wanted to go there. They wanted to learn.
Yeah, because you're gonna
And-
apply to it.
Yep, and you built good relationships with your teachers through there. I mean, I even still talk to a couple of my teachers now
Exactly.
that I'm here.
Yeah, they still call
And
me.
Yeah.
the test scores show through the state we were second, third, and that didn't have to do with home life. So basically, it was like 60 or 70% of people were on free or reduced lunch.
Yeah.
That means the income levels that the kids are coming from
Yeah.
were way below
Yeah.
other schools around. Like we were competing with Moeller and other top private schools around the state, and it just shows that if you take a care first approach, it really can benefit the
And it
students.
also
Yes. And I feel like going with that, most public education, and most schools, there's a call to action. There's a call to action to make money, not to care about the kids. Because I've seen the administration, I know the administration through multiple schools here in Kentucky. All they're worried about is how can we make this budget best? How many kids can we get in specifically just so they get paid?
So you believe education has become like a business?
Yes.
And
For example, there is a private high school in my hometown, Pikeville Independent, where really big football, really big basketball, they have investors into that school that their sole reason for investing is to get returns from that football and basketball.
going back to Ignite, it really showed that you really don't need 5 days of classroom lectures.
Yeah, it was 3 days, and it was
Yeah.
project-based learning.
Yeah, and Tuesday and Thursday it was all about doing your homework and getting it done. So when you got home, you didn't really have to worry about any homework. You could focus on socializing and not be locked in on school 24/7. And being there, I felt like I was encouraged to fail, and like honestly, like you were graded on your failure because then you had to show what you did differently, and it really
Yeah,
laid down the
I wouldn't
path.
say you were encouraged to fail, but they definitely did. They were like, you're okay to fail. They would grade you realistically,
Yeah,
but
yeah.
they wouldn't just stop there. They would then show you how you can improve, how you can get better, and give you multiple opportunities to get better and get that better grade that
Yeah.
you
So
want.
bringing this back to like values, do you believe that education should be shaped around our values instead of like basically the knowledge that based off like how much knowledge you've gained from that topic?
I think that's a touchy subject, right? Because everyone has different values. I
Okay.
think some people are going to value having more money. Some people are going to value religion.
Mhm.
Some people are going to value interpersonal relationships. I think, I mean, if you're going to do it that way, you'd almost have to break up the different schools.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, I feel like there's so many schools out there we could do that, you know?
But is that just going to create more separation
Mm,
and
yeah, then that's
the
not-
nation's just going to be even more divided
That's
than it
not
is
it.
right now? I
That's
don't
not
think that's.
education.
I don't think
I
that's.
believe I believe that education should be based off of this quote. I forget who it's by, but it's a shame to not see what your body is capable of. And I think education should be based around the idea of fostering the children and elevating them to make them go as far as they possibly can.
Yeah, and like, I don't know. Not everyone has the same religion, but you know, I read the Bible, but I'm not that well deep into it. But I feel like I've learned so much more values and structure from the Bible that has helped me like stay on course and like in one lane rather than like society. Because I feel like in society, everyone has all these different paths they're looking at because they have social media. So they see all the great things happening and they see all the bad things happening. They're not like focused in on their life. They're just trying to be someone else, like an influencer seed. But they need to really think back onto who they want to be and where they want to go. And I feel like taking it back to scripture, it allows you to find that path.
So I've got. Go ahead.
Me and my friends, we used to talk about, I wouldn't necessarily call myself a Christian at that point, but back in freshman year and a little bit before that, me and my friends would talk about how, like, we would sort of question the, like, Christian doctrine from where we were around, and we'd ask questions about it, but once we would get deep into the conversation, our teachers would get mad at us and they would tell us to, like, they would, and to be upfront, it was partially because we weren't doing our work. Although we did eventually do our work, it's just because we weren't doing our work in class.
Yeah.
But we didn't have any other place to talk about that, and so I didn't feel like I was getting a holistic education, and I felt as if I was being, and all of my views now stem from the lens which I see through, regardless if I wanted it to be or if I didn't want it to be right now, is through the Bible and through, because that's what I know.
Yeah.
And that's subject to change, but I felt like I wasn't seen as a whole to be able to learn different things.
Like going back to Ignite, I feel like how you were talking, the teacher would get mad at you for talking about like discussions. Ignite really helped you foster those discussions because you were given that time on Tuesday, Thursday, because you had no classes, so you could really meet up with people and really discuss what like you were passionate about. So I feel like if schools changed up from like doing lectures 5 days a week and structuring their coursework to just 3 days a week, I feel like that would help. That would be beneficial across the board.
Yeah, and I got going back just a little bit. We were talking about bringing like religious ideas into school. So Texas actually, they tried to pass a law. I'm not sure if it went through or not about the Ten Commandments.
Yeah.
Right? There was a lot of kickback from people.
Mm-hmm.
A lot of people didn't like it, and I get it. I think there's a lot of good values in the Bible that I like to follow, but at the same time, you can't push your values onto other people.
Mm-hmm.
It's just people have to want to learn that.
Yeah.
And I think, like you were saying, switching topics again to the Ignite thing, I think having that Tuesday, Thursday time allows you to work on those projects, build relationships with other people, and also build relationships with teachers. So you could go ask them questions. And even though we went to a public school, like teachers weren't afraid to speak what was on their mind. Our teachers would talk about religion, politics, other things. They wouldn't like put things onto you, but they were allowed discussion. I feel like a lot of the public schools around us, that would be shut down immediately, saying you can't talk about those things. Yeah, feared topics.
Mm-hmm.
I think those shouldn't be feared topics. While they can cause arguments, disagreements, I think they should be things people think about.
Yeah, I agree. My teacher, this was just something that I was thinking about saying earlier, further y'all's point about Ignite. My teacher, she was teaching us tricks on how to just pass the ACT by not actually having to
Study.
or do
ACT mom.
And we also had, she also was the leader of, or she like led my online Spanish class, and she told us to use ChatGPT. She told us to use AI, she told us to use Google, use whatever so that we could cheat through it and so that we could pass it. And so nobody in my home high school that has done Spanish has actually learned.
So you weren't challenged. You were pushed. Just
to pass.
Just to pass because it's a requirement, but no one really is worried about it.
Well, she saw that kids. I see where she's coming from because I see where she's coming from because she understood that kids were disinterested with education.
Yeah.
And so she was just giving them what they needed to get out into the real world. And because if they were going to deny education, they were going to deny education. She understood that because of the education system, we weren't even going to try. And I think that now the kids have responded to the education system. Now the teachers need to respond to the education system. Mm-hmm. I think a lot of teachers are scared of teaching their own way. And they, like you guys said, they need to run it like a business. And I understand that their job is partially at stake there, but there needs to be a degree of revolt.
The reason most teachers teach that way is because the county school boards have so many different rules and regulations that keep them from teaching certain ways, because of certain feared topics, and that's from just parental backlash, and that parental backlash, I believe, stems from the natural human fear of different things, so their parents don't want their children to be different from them.
I think overall, like what we've been talking about, without having this controlled discussions or controlled arguments, it's leading to greater division when these people grow up.
Yeah.
That's what's leading to all these riots, all these fights, the great division between the blue and the red. No one knows how to disagree.
Yeah.
Like me and Alex,
They
we
don't
disagree on a lot of
understand
things, but we can have a controlled discussion.
they don't understand that differing opinions are okay because they've never been exposed
Exactly.
to
And I feel
differing
like
opinions.
They don't have
Exactly.
a deep understanding of their own values,
Mhm.
so they're just arguing one side of another person that they heard that they like.
Yeah, with no
Yeah, you're
no
not-
backing.
you're
No
not-
background.
You're not pushed to learn more besides what you were told from your teachers and your parents.
So I believe everything comes back to your values, and we really just need to focus in on why we do what we do. You think
Yeah.
that's what it is?
I think so. I think that could be a good place to.
Yeah.
I think that's a good place to leave it at.